Welcome to the Legal Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jolene, and with the Legal Learning Center, I help prospective law students save $300,000 on law school. If you'd like 3 money-saving strategies today, visit legallearningcenter.com/money. Joining me today are the hosts of the 2legit podcast, a podcast for non-traditional law students. They're going to share their expertise gained from 2.5 years of law school, some gap years, and interviewing tons of people for their own podcast. Okay, so today I am joined by Onna and KJ. They are the hosts of 2legit, a podcast for law students. Onna, why don't you start us off by introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about yourself?
Just like that. Okay. Yeah. So my name is Onna. I go by Onna Mission on the podcast, and yeah, our podcast is podcast for non-traditional law students with non-traditional backgrounds. I feel like I'm doing my intro, but yeah, I'm originally born and raised in the greatest city, Houston, Texas. Before I came to law school, I was a registered nurse for about 8 years, and then decided to come back and met this fantastic person to my right, Miss KJ. KJ's the doer.
All right, KJ, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jolene, for having us on here today. It's been such a great experience so far, and to be invited to be a guest with somebody that we look up to and we admire is just, it's just checking things off of our, bucket list that we never thought were possible while we're law students. So thank you for this.
Thanks.
But yeah, going back to before law school, I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii. I did my undergrad at UCLA a long time ago. I used to be a flight attendant prior to being a law student. And while I was a flight attendant, the best thing about being a flight attendant was not just the travel benefits, but it was the flexibility with your schedule. So that's when I started my first startup, which was a bikini label. I was a fashion designer, makeup artist, a lot of in the creative world. And then I became obsessed with trademarks and intellectual property. So that's kind of what started me on the ball for the legal realm. And once I sold my first business, that's when people were contacting me for startup consulting. And that's when I realized I could turn that into an actual business. And thereafter, that's when my quest for obtaining my JD really was put into action. And so, yeah, here I am, and I'm still a serial entrepreneur trying to manage all these things while we're in law school. And it's been quite the feat remotely, but it feels good to have such a good supporting, just a good support system like Anna, good family, good friends, and meeting someone like you who has been remotely supporting this entire time as well. So, yeah.
Yes, I was so excited to have you guys on here. I'm so glad we can make this work. You guys are not just a wealth of information in and of yourselves. I mean, first of all, you guys, again, are non-traditional students. You have that work experience bringing you into law school that just changes that dynamic. You have a background that supports law school, because when you learn and read these things that are happening in the law in these cases, you can actually see how they apply in the real world a lot more than a student who's gone straight through. And then when you get out in that working world, it just, I think, is so much easier in a way. So you have that. But then on top of that, with your podcast, you've been interviewing so many different people on so many different topics to help the law students out, help them through their legal journey, which is, awesome. I love it. So I wanted to have you guys on today to talk about some of that extra information that you guys have, that you've collected from around the legal industry, whether it's other law students or lawyers. And I think where I'd like to start is just, I know that law students can have a real hit on their relationships, their friendships, their love interests, or it can actually bring people together. So what has been your guys' experience, just with what you've learned through your guests and yourselves personally, perhaps, as far as how to maintain friendships, relationships, and how does that all work with law school?
Ooh, that is such a good question. Anna, do you want to go first?
No, I'm thinking about it.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess right off the bat, what I'm thinking is I came into law school engaged and I'm currently no longer engaged. So relationships are very, very hard to maintain during law school. And I think one of the things that I learned the most is really figuring out who are your ride or dies on your new journey. Like ride or dies, meaning people who are going to support you when you are going to be selfish with your time. Law school requires so much of you mentally, physically, financially, emotionally, and you need people who are going to stick by you because they see the bigger picture and how much it really means to you. So you kind of have to discern who's working with you, you know, and um I think that's the main thing is to not hold on too tightly to the people you once counted on before, because other people might be there for you. You know, you might just outgrow some of the relationships that you've had before. And then also try not to let your relationships, I guess, derail you. Because one of the things that Anna and I are currently in a bar prep course together, and one of the things that we learned is that one of the main reasons why most people don't actually pass the bar exam on the first time around is not because they are ill prepared substantively. It's because of the outside factors going on in their lives. So they even suggest if you're going to go through a breakup, just wait until, if you're close to the bar, wait until you're done with the bar.
I remember
Yeah.
that.
So, you know, relationships, Jolene, as you were saying, are very, very important. And it's something to really think about because it can affect your performance, your progress, and your altogether general outcome. So I currently go to a therapist right now. Best relationship I've had this year, hands down. And she actually suggested to me to not, since I am single right now, not to connect with anyone until I'm done with the bar. So she actually kind of told me no. So that those situations obviously only apply to a certain person. So if that advice doesn't fit for you and you know you're already in a relationship or you're married or whatever, like take listen to what applies to you and then leave the rest, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's the best thing to do for it because every advice is not universal. And I
Yeah.
think that's the main thing. And as a former makeup artist, that's what I try to tell people too. Just because this foundation lasts on me for 19 hours doesn't mean it's going to last on you for 19 hours. You got to find what fits for you, you know?
No, that's
Yeah.
really good advice. And I definitely saw that during my bar exam that a lot of people who should have passed just had lots of stuff going on and didn't.
Mhm.
So yeah. What about you, Anna? Any relationship advice?
No, none at all. I started law school single and it looks like I'm finishing it single. But that's fine, on our episode we discussed relationships. We had a few people on who, were able to actually meet in law school. I just haven't
Mhm.
been that, fortunate. And then obviously with COVID, that really put a wrench in any a major lots of socialization.
Mhm.
So I mean, I'm kind of the opposite of KJ in that I actually had more of an isolating experience because, I don't really have any family or friends out here in Seattle. And it took a while for me to actually get close to people that were in law school. It's, a lot of people say that you need to like form study groups, or they suggest like forming study groups or, meeting a whole bunch of people. And I'm an introvert. I know it's hard to believe I have a podcast, but deep down inside, I am a introverted person. And that was one thing that I had to learn in law school was, forming relationships, because a lot of people that you work with could be potential colleagues or potential coworkers in the future. And so just having that discernment on who I would want to work with when, law school is all said and done, and who I want to partner with has been, one of the best advices I've received. And so just having a lot of discernment when it comes to finding the right people. And I have a handful of people like KJ and others that I rely on, and I just work with them. I had established a really good working relationship. So in terms of advice, I would give someone, it's just, seek out those study groups, so don't force it. Because sometimes when you force relationships, you tend to go overboard, and that's when things go south. And I actually had a friend that I started law school with, and was trying to force the relationship, trying to force, meeting, but it just didn't work. And unfortunately, that friendship kind of ended up dissolving. But it actually opened up another space for other people to come into my space. So
Totally.
that's
Yeah.
how I deal with it.
All right, this is good to know, because law school it's very intense. It's very difficult to have breakups. It's hard to even just go out on a date, much less form the full relationship and then break up. So
Right.
I don't know how people do it. I had, one person all through law school, so that kind of just made things super easy for me. But
Right.
I saw it, and I was stressed for other people,
Right.
So, all right. So what about, do you guys have any 1L horror stories?
Do you have one, Anna?
Cold calls. Oh
Yeah,
my
mine
God.
mine is probably a cold call one too.
I don't know what it is. I knew it was coming because the professor that I had, he said we're gonna go in alphabetical order, and I knew once they got around the ends that I was I was gonna get called on. And for whatever reason, he called on me, and like my brain literally, like a cartoon, just hopped out of my head and went down the street. And I literally, I think for like 10 seconds, I just stood with my mouth open and not saying anything. And I was like, this is it. This is the cold call. Say something. And then I pretty much mumbled something, and the professor just saw that I was, gone, and just kept on talking. I was like, you shitted on your first cold call. Oh, are we allowed to curse? Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
We're all adults here.
You just crapped out your first cold call, and like literally, I don't know what it was. After that, maybe I just paranoid, but after that, like, I feel like the whole class turned against me, and no one talked to me for like 2 weeks straight. Like, don't talk to her. She got bad juju. But yeah, that was a crazy. And everyone says that cold calls, it's okay not to know the answer, and to a certain extent, it's not. I mean, it is okay to not know the answer, but when you're in it, it's hard. It's hard to recover.
It's scary. It is scary. Do you have any horror stories?
Mine is very similar to Anna's. It was a cold call too, and I knew it was coming too, and I was well prepared for it too, but it was a cartoon experience. But mine was like the Looney Tunes one where all you see is stars after you get knocked down. That was me. All I saw was just stars. And then even after class, I showed the professor, and I was like, I actually did it. Here was the case. I briefed it, so that he actually knew. And then, but I think the thing about 1L horror stories is that everyone has them, and people respond weirdly like that, like how Anna said about people not talking to you for a while after that because they just either think you're not up to par or whatever it is. But eventually down the line, people see who people really are. Law school is not indicative of the type of lawyer or the type of professional or person you're going to be post graduation. And like that's somewhat our advantage of coming in to law school older, is that we know that that is actually the truth. And for me personally, I recovered after that first 1L cold. Well, because my 1L cold call experience was actually when I was doing my my MLS at law school. And so thereafter, for graduation, I was elected graduation speaker. So I was able to redeem myself in front of my classmates and in front of the professors, so they could see, okay, she might not say anything in class, and meaning she might just totally blank out. But when push comes to shove, she'll step up to the plate, and so I think that's the thing for people to remember, especially, the younger law students, is you're bound to screw up. Everybody comes in being the best at their game wherever they came from. And you're going to happen. It's okay. You're better for it. Where you're really tested is what you do after you catch that L. What happens? Mm-hmm. That's where the separation occurs. What happens when you catch that L? Yeah. So when you can bounce back, and you can say, hey, you know what? It's okay. I failed, but that's part of my process. That's only going to set me up better for later than it's good to have these 1L horror stories in your back pocket so you can tell people, hey, you know what, you're not alone. We're all like feeling it,
Yeah.
and it still happens.
I have another 1L horror story.
Oh, go for it, Anna.
I think about it. So I had crim law really early. I don't know if you had crim law early, KJ, because I don't think we took it together.
No, I had it in the summer before.
I had it at 8. My class was at 8 a.m. from 8 to 10. And for the most part, I was always on time and always showed up early. early. It just so happened that I forgot in the class was on Monday. I forgot that it was daylight savings and that time had sprung forward. And I showed up to class a whole hour late.
Oh, yeah.
And it didn't help that I sat, we have assigned seatings. And so I sat like relatively close to the front. And like I had, because KJ says we're relatively older. I have some back issues. So I have my little wheeled backpack, just wheeling it down. All you can hear is do 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 do. I was just like, wait a second. How did everybody get here before I did?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not good times.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Now,
but I
how
also
did they-
recovered from that.
How did the professor, did they address you in any way? Did they?
No,
pick on
the professor just looked at me like this.
Some
just like
of
kept
those
on teaching.
professors-
He looked up and then just kept teaching like I was like not even there.
Yeah, some of those professors are very unforgiving. And, if you come in late, I mean, maybe it's because it also was daylight savings time, but like some of those professors are just, they'll start yelling, why are you late? And then they go on this whole tirade about, when you are practicing and going to court, blah, 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 which is funny because in my area of law, everyone's late for court. So it's just I was like, that never worked out for me, but okay.
Yeah.
But now I know you guys have had so many guests on your show. Is there a piece of advice that you received maybe from an attorney or even from another student that just really stuck out to you that you feel like people should really know? Aside from mine,
Yeah.
of course.
there is really so much. It's hard to isolate it because we've talked about such an array of topics. Like that's probably my favorite thing about our podcast is that we have covered so many things from imposter syndrome to microaggressions to finance to, brand value. So it's really hard to say what is the most, but oh my God, it's like asking me what my favorite food is. Like I'm really good at buffets. So is it okay if I pick a few and say one general overview? Okay, so I guess the few I would pick is like financially plan ahead and do your homework, but don't be intimidated because you already came so far. You're going to figure out how to make it all work. So you have the resources out there. We're supposed to be pros at research, right? So make sure we do that. So 1, 2, everyone is suffering from imposter syndrome, so you're not alone. And 3, brand value is very, very important. Something as simple as like coming to class late, right? Or the way that you speak to a professor, or never having your camera on, even though the professor asked for everybody's camera to be on. I mean, with not including if people have a special circumstance, but knowing that everything that you do adds to your brand. And later on, when push comes to shove, everything that is on your resume, whether it be your grades, your class ranking, all those things will essentially somewhat go out the door because the person that you are is the person that people are hiring. Because, whether you're applying for your 1L internship, 2L, or even like your first job straight out of law school, we're all kind of bringing the same skills to the table. It comes down to a matter of who do they want to work with. And that's really what a lot of law students have to remember. It's who you are that counts the most at the end of the day, And then I guess my overarching thing that I've learned is that it's possible. We've already come so far. we can do it. And, there are so many people who are rooting for you, who want to pay it forward. And this is crazily one of the most help each other communities of professions that I've ever seen. So as much as people think lawyers are assholes, they're very helpful assholes, and they want to help each other, succeed post law
Yeah.
school. So that's probably for me.
That's awesome. And yeah, I agree. Having worked, at a major corporation, we hired off personality. It was, we can train you. And yeah, you come
Mhm,
to us with pretty much the same training anywhere you
mhm,
go.
mhm,
But what are you like? Are you going to go hiking with us? Are you going to participate in the company picnic?
mhm.
Um, just that kind of stuff every day when we see you in the office. Do we want to see you?
Right,
Because
right.
yeah, if we don't want to see you, that's a problem. And so yeah, we became very, very careful with who we hired, and more we got into, we don't even care if there's any experience. At first it was, we're a little scared to hire newbies, but eventually
Right,
we
right.
got past that
Mhm.
and figured out how to do our training. And then it was just a matter of straight personality, really.
There you go. There
Yeah.
you go.
So Anna, what do you think you learned most from your
Like KJ,
guests?
there are so many gems and nuggets that all of our guests, including yourself, have given us over the year and a half. Um, I guess the most recent one was that really stuck out with me, was pretty much don't be afraid to try something that you not necessarily think you want to do in law school, not after law school, because I, I mean, essentially, the attorney said that this is pretty much low stakes, and that's honestly how they found their calling and what they're doing right now. Their whole law school experience, they had done internships and externships in a certain area. And then it wasn't even until like they finished the bar that they got a call for a completely different area. And that is what they're doing now, and they're thriving. So, just having that open mind and being open to any opportunities is key. And especially now that I'm in as a 3L, my last semester, I'm hoping to kind of, have a different experience of what I had. Obviously, 1L's, foundational courses and some required courses as a 2L. So now just being open to whatever is available out there for me so that I can focus into what it is I want to do.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice.
Mhm.
I was dedicated to not going into workers' comp. My friend went into workers' comp, and I thought I called it devil's work. So I'm like, it's litigation. I don't want to do litigation. And it just sounds very icky. I don't know. It didn't sound fun. It didn't sound interesting in any way. But after a few years of struggling to live my dream, I finally said, okay, I need a paycheck. So just get me a job. And I loved it. And I thrived. And I even earned the nickname Trial Queen at one point because I was going to
Yeah.
trial so much. And I mean, and I don't care about trial anymore. It's not scary to me. I even showed up one time without one of my binders, like, because I'm not double, triple checking things anymore. I'm just like, hey, it's another day and I'm going to court and I'm trying things again. Like,
Right.
I was like, that was a turning point though. I did say, okay, let's get some fear back in me so that I can make sure I show up with binders. But yes, so you just never know what's going to resonate with you until you really get out there and try things. And I always thought work comp was this very simplistic area of law, and actually it's quite complex. The laws change every year,
Mhm.
and so it's just keeping on top of what's going on is really difficult. I mean, even
Mhm.
during COVID,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
I couldn't imagine. It's just
people who get COVID from work, that's a whole
right.
new law. It's a whole new thing.
Right.
And you have to learn what medical conditions are impacted or created from COVID, which we don't even know as a scientific community. And yet as lawyers, we're litigating. That wasn't caused
Right.
by COVID or whatever. And so it's
I-
very
That's so crazy.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just never know what's going to happen. So yeah, be open. I love that, Anna. That's really good advice.
Mhm.
All right.
Very true.
So you guys are now in your third year. So
Mhm.
you've been through almost 2.5 years of law school. I mean, how does it
Yeah.
feel to actually know you're on the tail end?
It feels awesome. I watch New Girl a lot on repeat because it's very low drama. And sometimes I used to worry that I would end up like Nick Miller and, just be that close and not finish. But it feels good to know that I won't be like that. And that the finish line really is a lot closer than we think. And actually, for me, my classes will be done at the end of this semester, and next semester I'll just be doing externship stuff remotely. So I cannot wait for these last finals in December.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. Congrats. How do you feel,
Thank you.
Anna?
I am in addition to being an introvert, I'm also a pessimist. So I know that's the perfect combination to be an attorney, right? Introverted pessimist. I am mildly excited, but I'm not trying to get too excited because, like COVID came out of nowhere last year. And I'm just like, I'm just going to take my time and, follow with the flashlight in front of me because I'm not quite sure how this is going to end up. And I mean, honestly, I joke, I am very excited that we're at the tail end with everything going on. But
sure.
yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get too high. I'm not going to get too low. I'm just going to keep it even keel.
Oh my
I
gosh.
think that is smart. Actually, that's what Bill Murray says is his key to leading the type of life that he does, that a lot of people in the entertainment industry are actually drawn to, is that he lives this even keel, no roller coaster life. Like with regard to whether anything good or bad happens, there's no real shift in reaction. You just keep going. That way you don't really fall off your path of where you are trying to go. So
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay, so Anna, how do you feel your gap years benefited you the most as far as going to law school later?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's funny because I initially wanted to go to law school right after I graduated from my first degree. I don't know what I was thinking. I was, I'm still studious, but all those years ago, I was, an overachiever and graduated early. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a semester, study for the LSAT, and then boom, life happened. This is why I'm pessimistic. Life happened, and my family member got sick, and then I spent like a whole year taking care of them and decided to go back to nursing school. So, I'm actually glad that I did have that time and actually having another career outside, because there's no way I would have been would have been prepared to be an attorney fresh out the gate from my first degree. And so that this gap year, not gap year, gap years, gap half a decade, helped give me perspective, helped give me, maturity, which, I didn't know that I was lacking at the time. And then perspective on what's really important. And on top of that, I've been able to travel and see the world and not feel like I'm missing anything. Because, a lot of people when they're young and then they hop into a career, they get anxious after 2 or 3 years and then, go off the ricks. And so for me, I don't have any doubt that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do long term. And so I'm glad that I had that opportunity to get all that anxious energy out of the way and see the world and appreciate my space where I am now.
Yeah, one of the biggest reasons that I tell people avoid student loans, let's talk about how we can keep those numbers down, is because I keep telling people, you don't know what life has in store for you. Your spouse can get injured and need care. A loved one, a parent can get sick and they need your help. You can have a kid with severe special needs where you have to stop working for a while to take care of them. And it's happened to a lot of my colleagues.
Right.
And I don't know what they're doing with their student loans. It's very difficult. I was lucky to work in a corporation where from time to time I could take leaves of absence and they were fully paid. And it was fabulous. And I took advantage of that when I needed that. And not everyone gets that. And especially when we're in this high intensity type of firm where maybe they don't have those paid leaves of absence. So really, I mean, again, keeping those loans down is the best thing you can do for your future self, so that no matter what happens, you can handle it. But yeah, that's great that you were able to do that and then come back and yeah, have that security of, okay, I'm ready. I know what I want. I'm going to go get it. Awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, KJ?
I'd say the best thing about taking that gap decade overall pertaining to law school was that I know my purpose. And for me, purpose is everything because purpose is what keeps that fire alive. So for me, that time gave me a reason to be here. No one's forcing me. No one asked me. I'm not enticed to access a trust account because I'm in law school. There's real purpose, and my purpose is to affect positive change. So, I mean, yeah, lots of people do, but really, I do have that. But also, I think being older makes you realize as well that this degree, this JD, and I've said it so many times before, it enables you to move laterally exactly in order to move vertically. So you have all these opportunities, that you can embark on at any given point in your career, and you can be strategic with it all. But aside from that, from the law perspective, like, it allowed me in my 20s to live it up and travel the world as a flight attendant pre-COVID. That was crazy amazing, and then also as an entrepreneur, it let me build my resume and build my connections, so that all of the offers that I've received thus far have all been because of what I did prior to law school. So you're building that brand, you're building your reputation beforehand, so that while you're there, you're continuing to build in law school, and then post law school, you're bridging all of those things together. So if I could do it again, yeah, sometimes I wish that my brain was a little bit, younger and like ready to go, all juiced up, but I would do it again the exact same way, because I think that gap time is necessary to maximize your potential while in law school. You have more direction and you have more purpose. So,
Yeah, I agree. And I can see with both of you guys, for example, Anna, I can see where with your medical background, that in a medical malpractice field or workers' comp or PI, that you would be very valuable. I mean, aside from valuable everywhere, of course, but
right.
especially in those fields.
Right.
And KJ, with your entrepreneurship, I mean, that just translates into rainmaking in my mind. So any firm that is heavy on like, hey, we need you to bring in clients, it's like, hey, well, I know how to talk to people and connect with those people. Now, I know you've actually been maintaining that entrepreneurship during law school. I've been following you. So how do you find the time?
Oh my God. Planning, planning. It's just like, I want to say, how when you talk to a sole practitioner, they'll say that they spend either 50% of the time or less than 50% of the time actually practicing law. The rest of the time is spent towards the business, right? So that's kind of how I feel with my schedule. Most of my time I am planning. That way, when I'm hitting my list, I'm just executing. So I think it's just a matter of having a real planner, holding yourself accountable, and getting on those lists every Sunday so that you can prep for Monday. And then Monday morning, every single morning, you're going through it. And then, using your highlighters so that you can color code things, using the Post-its on there. You just have to make sure everything is accounted for and keep on double checking. Because if you have so many things going on, you have to make sure you have all those different lists. And one thing could have multiple lists. So if I have 5 things going on and one of them is only school and I have 5 classes, that means I should at least have 5 lists for one list, right?
Right.
So it gets complicated, but I think it's worth it. And luckily for me in this way, this is when being single and having no kids works to your advantage, because I don't have to think about anyone aside from myself. So that's I think that's how.
Yeah,
And staying positive and telling yourself you can do it.
Yeah, it's still very, very impressive. I mean, my gosh. Yeah, I follow you on social media and I'm just like, what is she up to now? My gosh, it's just so much stuff.
Well, you two are the exact same. You guys do so much. I don't know how. But I think that's another thing that's also key, accountability partners, um, people who have them execute 7 times more than the normal person who doesn't have an accountability partner. So Jolene, even though you and I aren't interacting regularly or daily, like how Anna and I do, seeing each other and what we're doing, that inspires each other and that keeps us motivated, which thereby keeps each other accountable to make sure that we hit our lists. So I think that's another like integral thing to getting things done is to keep that motivation up and surrounding yourself with people who truly do support you, and that you get to learn from along the way, and like
Yeah.
Anna holds me accountable all the time. So I'm lucky to have her.
Yeah, I can totally
Aw.
see it. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying because even if there's someone that I'm not, yeah, accountable to, but there's
Right.
someone I'm regularly checking in with. Like there was someone, I really really put a lot more time and energy into my business just before COVID hit.
Right.
And I took a class maybe the month before we all went into lockdown.
Hmm.
And there was another girl in that class and we really connected.
Hmm.
And just all through COVID, we just kept checking in. What are you doing? How are you doing? What's up? And it was just so helpful to have someone who we were kind of growing together
Right.
just to check in and just be like, okay, I should have something new to say, right? Like I should have moved that needle a little more. So yes, any type of accountability is super helpful.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
guys.
so.
So I mentioned your social media, but how can people follow you if they want to check out your journey, listen to the podcast, all that kind of stuff?
KJ, you want to take this?
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry. So yeah, we are on Instagram. That's the main thing that we post on. So on Instagram, we're at 2legit podcast. That's the number 2legit podcast. And we're also on Facebook, and our podcast itself is on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple iTunes.
Before we get into my top takeaways, a quick word from our sponsor, Juno. If you need to take out student loans, check in with Juno first. Juno can often offer law students 1% to 2% lower interest rates than the federal government, and with no origination fees and oftentimes cash back as well. Visit advisor.legallearningcenter.com/Juno for more information. My top takeaways from this chat with Onna and KJ. Number 1, everyone has a 1L horror story and imposter syndrome. You're not alone and you will survive. Number 2, experiment in law school. That's really what it's there for. Number 3, gap years gave them purpose and perspective. All right, that's it for this episode. A full transcript will be available at legallearningcenter.com/2legit. That's the number 2, legit. Show notes will be there as well with all the links and so forth. As always, if you enjoyed the show, please go ahead and leave a review. That just helps the show help more people. Thanks.